Hello everyone. Welcome to Everyday Essential series of Shantha Lakshmi IAS Academy, where we are going to discuss about the important topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So, as part of this series, now let us dwell into the topics from 4th June 2025, where we are going to discuss about this Ladakh's new policies on quota, domicile, and language, then the G7 grouping, and then Aravali Green project, followed by Mount Etna, and finally about the Hungary country mapping. Now let's start with our first topic, that is Ladakh gets new policies. So why we are discussing this? Before going into the context of this discussion, let's have some background details. See, application of this article 370, Ladakh was formed out of this Jammu and Kashmir as a union territory from J&K Reorganization Act 2019, and it was formed on October 31st, 2019 as a union territory. So from then onwards, this Ladakh has come under the central administration. And there was a concern in the Ladakh people that without any constitutional provisions or protections available under the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh's unique tribal identity, the fragile ecology, and the limited resources would come under the threat from the external economic and the demographic forces. So, based on this concern that the Ladakh people will lose their tribal identity and the fragile ecology and their limited resources, they have been demanding a constitutional protection, that is, inclusion of Ladakh under the sixth schedule. So this sixth schedule provides a tribal majority areas in certain northeastern states with legislative and the financial autonomy with the autonomous district councils. So based on their fear of losing their tribal identity, culture, and the limited resources, the Ladakh people have been demanding the constitutional protection or the inclusion of Ladakh under the sixth schedule. And the demand was repeatedly raised by the Ladakh apex body and the Kargil Democratic Alliance. And we also witnessed this Sonam Wangchuk fast also hunger strike for this constitutional protection to the Ladakh. So based on these demands, the central government has formed many committees and led many meetings with this lay apex body and the Kargil Democratic Alliance groups, and now decided, and on June 3rd, June 2nd and 3rd, the central government has notified some regulations to preserve the Ladakh's land, jobs, and culture aimed at addressing the concerns raised by the civil society over the past 5 years. So the president has notified 5 regulations. We'll see what are those 5 regulations and what are the provisions given by the or what are the protections given by the central government for the Ladakh people. So, what are those 5 regulations? The first regulation is the Ladakh Civil Services Decentralization and Recruitment Amendment Regulation 2025. The second one is the Ladakh Civil Services Domicile Certificate Rules 2025. The third one is the Union Territory of Ladakh Reservation Amendment Regulation 2025. The fourth one is the Ladakh Official Languages Regulation 2025. And the fifth one is the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council's Amendment Regulation 2025. So the President has notified 5 regulations through this Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019 through these 5 regulations. Let's see in detail about these 5 regulations. The first regulation, that is the Ladakh Civil Services Decentralization and Recruitment Amendment Regulation 2025, provides for the first time the domicile criteria for the Ladakh government jobs under this union territory. In this, the criteria has given under the basis of this residence, education, government service, and the family ties. Here, this regulation says that a person who has lived in Ladakh for 15 years or the individuals who have studied in Ladakh for 7 years and appeared in class 10 or 12 may be considered as the residents of this Ladakh. And also the children of the central government employees who have served in Ladakh for 10 years, along with the children and spouses of domiciles, are also eligible for the residents of Ladakh. So that these categories of person can avail this residents of Ladakh and can avail the benefits of this Ladakh government jobs. So this is the first regulation. Ladakh Civil Services Decentralization Recruitment Regulation 2025. Now coming to the second regulation, that is Ladakh Civil Services Domicile Certificate Rules 2025, wherein it says or it lays down the procedure and documentation. The procedure and the documentation required to obtain a domicile certificate. Here how this process goes. The persons will apply for a domicile certificate, and after the application is completed, the who will issue this domicile certificate, that is the Tahsildar, will issue this domicile certificate. And if the application is rejected or if there are any concerns, the deputy commissioner act as this appellate authority, the final authority for this issuing this domicile certificate for the Ladakh people. So these are the two regulations. Now moving to a third regulation, that is Union Territory of Ladakh Reservation Amendment Regulation, which provides the total reservation for SCs, STs and OBCs as 85%. Before it has only 50%, but now through this regulation, the central government is giving the SC, ST and BCs as the 85% reservation quota. This will apply to the admission into the professional institutions such as engineering and medical colleges also. And now excluding this 10% economically weaker sections and 5% unreserved. And coming to the fourth regulation, that is with respect to the Ladakh Official Languages Regulation 2025. This regulation recognizes English, Hindi, Urdu, Bhoti and Purki as the official languages of Ladakh and mandates institutions support for the promotion of other languages. Those are Shina, Broskat, Bhalti and Ladakhi, in order to preserve the Ladakh's linguistic and the cultural diversity. And coming to the fifth regulation, that is Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council's Amendment Regulation 2025. This Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Act 1997 has been amended to include this reservation for women a 33%, that is 1/3%. In this, the 1/3 of seats in this LAHDCs, Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Councils of Leh and the Kargil, will be reserved for the women. 5 new regulations given by the central government to the Ladakh people. Those regulations are related to the first one is the domicile criteria, and next is the procedures for this domicile certification process, and third is the 85% reservation quota, and fourth is the Ladakh official languages and also promotion of other languages, and fifth is the reservation for women in this Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Councils. Now, what is the significance? Why are these regulations are significant for Ladakh people? See, first of all, that is the first comprehensive attempt by the central government to tailor the governance and the administrative framework, especially for the Ladakh as an UT. So, the government has listened to their demands, and now it is a first comprehensive attempt to tailor the governance and the administrative frameworks. And the second significance is that it addressed the Ladakh concerns. Though the people have demanded the sixth schedule, the constitutional provision for inclusion of Ladakh in the sixth schedule, though the government has reluctant to provide this constitutional status to the Ladakh, which would result in greater autonomy, but it gives some new regulations, thereby addressing the concerns of the Ladakh people. And the third significant is that by defining the domicile criteria and the legal filter for recruitment, the government has taken a significant step towards reservation of jobs for the locals. That is 85% reservation of jobs for the locals, which is the heart of the demand of Ladakhi people. And the next significance is that the language regulation also given not only the official languages but also promotion of other languages such as Bhoti, Purgi, and Ladakhi, Bhalti, etc. Thereby preserving the cultural identity and the linguistic diversity of the Ladakh people. So this is the significance of these new regulations. So this is all about the Ladakh's new policies and the 5 regulations and their significance. Now moving to our second topic, that is the G7. So why this G7 is in news? Because the G7 summit is going to be held in Canada, in Alberta, from this June 15th to 17th, 2025. And today it is only June 4th and still we left less than 2 weeks. And now this time the Canada still not invited India to its G7 summit. And this year it is the 50th year anniversary of the first G7 summit. Canada hosted 6 summits in the past, that is 1981, 1988, 1995, 2002, 2010, and the 2018. And now it is going to be hosted for the 7th time. Why there is a concern for India and why India still not received this invitation for this G7 summit? We know that there is a diplomatic or bilateral tensions between India and Canada. And if the invitation window closes, the Delhi's absent at the summit will be the first break since 2019. From 2019, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is attending every event of this G7 summit except for the 2020 where the US has cancelled this meeting due to the COVID pandemic. Now let us see what is this G7 and what is this summit. So first we'll deal with the history of this G7. So when does this G7 was created? It was in 1973. The G7 was originated in 1973 meeting of finance ministers. Finance ministers plus central bank governors in Paris. In Paris of France to deal with the matters of oil crisis, rising inflation, and collapse of this Bretton Woods institutions or Bretton Woods systems. So first, to address this oil crisis, rising inflation, and the collapse of these Bretton Woods systems, the members of this France, Germany, UK, US, Japan, and Italy met. The finance ministers of this Germany, France, UK, US, Japan, and Italy met in Paris, France to deal with this oil crisis, rising inflation, and the Bretton Woods system. So that's how originally it started in the year 1973. The first G7 summit. The first G7 summit took place in 1975 with the France, Germany, UK, US, Japan, and Italy. And in the year 1976, Canada has joined this meeting. Since 1977, the European Union is also invited as a host to these meetings. And in the year 1998, Russia also joined this grouping by becoming G8. But in the year 2014, the Russia was expelled from this G7 or this G8 because of the annexation of Crimea. Russia's annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. Again, in the year 2014, it became the G7. Now, coming to about this G7. What is this G7 summit? Remember, this G7 grouping is an informal group. It is not a formal or any professional group. It is an informal group formed by the countries of United States, Canada, United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany, and Japan. And it represents a world GDP of 40% and with a population of 10% world population. And remember, it has no legal existence. It has no permanent secretariat. And it has no official members. And no binding impact of the policies. The policy decisions are to be taken independently. The governing bodies and the governing decisions are to be taken independently by these members. Remember, there is no permanent secretariat, no legal existence for this G7 and it is an informal group. And coming to the presidency, that is each year, each member will host this G7 summit and they will become the president for that year. And these members will rotate in the preceding or in the successful years. Now, coming to the mandate of this G7 grouping or this G7 summit. See, till 1980s, this G7 primarily focused on the international economic issues and the international economic policies only. Till 1980s. But after that, it evolved to include the matters of foreign policy as well as the security. Now, the G7 members can discuss or deal with the matters of this economic policies, foreign policy, and the security of these members. So, this is about this G7. And India is not a member of this G7, but since 2019, India has been invited as a guest nation. But let's have to see what will happen in the future. Whether Canada will invite Delhi as a host country or not, let's have to see. Now moving to a third topic, that is Aravalli Green Project. So while we are discussing this, tomorrow, that is on June 5th, it will mark as the World Environment Day. So on this day, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to launch this Aravalli Green Project officially. So that's why we are going to discuss about this Aravalli Green Project. So what is this project? It is a land restoration project initiated in the year 2013. This Aravalli Green Project's aim is to create a buffer zone of green corridor of 5 kilometers around the Aravalli mountains. This project covers the 4 states. Those 4 states are Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Delhi. In these states, the Aravallis cover about the 6.5 million hectares. And the aim of this project is to create a green corridor 5 kilometers around this Aravalli mountains. What is the approach of this project? How they will create a green corridor? By involving planting the native species of trees or shrubs on the scrub land, wasteland and the degraded forest land. Not only planting the species but also rejuvenating and restoring the surface water bodies also. Surface water bodies like ponds, lakes, and the streams, etc. So not only planting the trees, but also through the rejuvenation and the restoration of the surface water bodies, this project, this Aravalli Green Project, is going to create a green corridor of 5 kilometers around this Aravalli mountain ranges. Now coming to the objectives of the Aravalli Green Project. It will boost the India's global image and position India as a leader in promoting the green development. It will enhance the biodiversity and the ecosystem services by planting the native trees, thereby restoring the habitats and maintaining the ecological health of this system. It also supports the international commitments, thereby aligning India with this UNCCD and the CBD, Convention of Biodiversity. It prevents desertification by curbing desert expansion and reducing the land degradation. It also promotes the sustainable livelihoods by engaging local communities and creating income and employment. The other objective it includes the multi-stakeholder execution project by involving the governments and other civil society organizations, thereby ensuring funding for the project. So these are the general objectives of this Aravalli Green Project. Now moving to our next topic, that is Mount Etna. Why we are discussing this? On June 2nd morning, this Mount Etna, which is in Italy's Sicily district, which is the largest volcano in the Europe, produced an explosive eruption, sending a huge cloud of ash, smoke, and rock fragments several kilometers into the sky. The volcano has erupted on this Italy's Mount Etna. So that's why we are discussing this Mount Etna. So where is this Mount Etna and what is this? It is an active volcano, which means it can erupt at any time. It is an active volcano in the east coast of Sicily, Italy. And it is the highest in Italy, south of the Alps mountain. And this Mount Etna is also one of the largest of the Europe's active volcanoes. And since 2013, this Mount Etna is designated as this UNESCO World Heritage Site also. Now coming to the type of eruption of this volcano. See, the Italy's National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology, Etna Observatory, some members of these members are saying that this Mount Etna's eruption is a strombolian eruption, which means that the ejected particles like dust, ash, and smoke have erupted to the discrete level. That means some meters or kilometers in the sky, moderate level. This is known as the strombolian eruption. Some scientists or some members are saying that this eruption of Mount Etna is the strombolian eruption. And while others are saying that it is not a strombolian eruption, it is a plinian eruption, which means that it is a huge explosion. Huge explosion of the materials, where the materials like a huge gas, dust, and the other rock fragments will explode to such a height that it will reach to the stratosphere. The stratosphere of the atmosphere. So this is known as this plinian eruption. Some members are saying that Mount Etna's eruption is a strombolian eruption, which is the moderate and discrete, where the ashes or the erupted particles will move only up to the some kilometers or meters in the sky, whereas the plinian eruption is a huge explosion where the ejected particles will directly reach the stratosphere. Now moving to our fifth topic, that is Hungary. So why we are discussing this as a part of the mapping series? Because every year there is this Budapest Pride March in the Hungary. So what is this Budapest Pride March? It is the largest annual event of this LGBTQ plus community. It is the largest festival for this LGBTQ plus community. And this event is going to be held in this every year. This event is going to be held in the June mid or the end. But the police has issued an order to deny a request to hold this LGBT. The police has denied the request to hold this Budapest Pride March. Why? Because Recently only, the Hungarian government has passed a law against any events. It opposed any events by this LGBTQ community in the country. So, following that legislation of this Hungarian parliament, the police has denied the request to conduct this Budapest Pride March. So that's why we are discussing about this. So let's look at the map of this Hungary. So where is this Hungary located? It is a landlocked country in the Central Europe. See, it is a landlocked country in the Central Europe, and its borders are Ukraine to the northeast and Romania to the east, Croatia to the southwest, Slovenia to the southwest, and Austria to the west, and Slovakia to the north. So Hungary is bordered by Ukraine, Romania, Slovakia, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, and also this Serbia also. Serbia to the southeast or the south. And the capital of this Hungary is this Budapest is the capital of this Hungary. And this Hungary is based on the drainage basin of this Danube River. Danube River, remember Danube River. And it is a high income country with having the universal healthcare access. And this Hungary is a member of European Union, NATO, United Nations, World Bank, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, and along with this Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. Hungarian is the official language of this Hungary. So that's all for today's video. Thank you.